Hello and welcome to a new Minecraft series here on the Scarworld server. My name is Volcata, and on this journey I will be your host. This season we will be transforming this beautiful swamp into a slightly less beautiful region I've tentatively dubbed the Cursed Lands. Now, it will be a few episodes before we really start doing work on this area, as I have other projects I want to make progress on first to better enable our ability to bring this place to life. Or, I suppose, to death. It has taken me 2 or 3 days of running around the server to find this perfect swamp, and by perfect, I mean diseased and unwelcoming. Now, this area will eventually be transformed into a foreboding area with a nice dark palette, overgrown trees, graveyards, and the other wonderful beauties that come with a dying territory. Now, the reason that I chose a swamp wasn't so much for being a swamp. It was for the kind of dingy grass and the greenish, murky water. I think that it will fit very well within the build theme that I have planned out for this season. Now, this build will take quite some time. It's going to take multiple episodes, probably a large part of the season. Now, this will not be the only thing I'm doing this season. In fact, as I mentioned before, it's going to be a few episodes before we even start doing anything here. Initially, I will go and clear out some space so that we can pull together some basic animals. We'll need wool from sheep, and I'm going to need to be eating something more than just melons, because this is literally what I've been surviving off of so far. We had killed a few cattle along the way, but 3 days of running around, well, that really eats up all your food. So I am now surviving off of watermelons. So we'll get some basic farming up, get some wheat. I picked up some seeds for pumpkins, so maybe some pumpkin pie. And find a few stray animals, get them together, get some pens going. We'll need to flatten out a territory. As you can see, this swamp is mostly water. The long-term plan for the build is not dominantly swamp, which means we're going to need to fill in pretty much all of this, or most of it. We need to be able to make pathways. We need to be able to build houses, fence in areas that are maybe broken down. Lots of abandoned buildings. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be unwelcoming. I want anyone who comes in here to feel like something might be stalking them at any time. Part of the reason why I chose a swamp beyond the dinginess, and I know you're probably thinking, as a swamp, they're all dingy. Well, that's not necessarily true. As you may or may not know, there's a heat map in Minecraft. That heat map helps dictate what biomes fit together. You're not going to see a desert right next to an ice spike biome. Well, the swamps, they kind of straddle the line between different heat maps, and you can have multiple heat maps within the same biome. If a swamp is too warm, you get the bright greens of the grass, which you can see over there by the chicken, and the water's more clear. A lot of the swamps that I found, they were too warm of a heat map. I need that nice dingy green over here. Look how beautiful that dingy green is. So areas where I need that will kind of dictate where I can build certain buildings. Also, currently the server, as far as we're aware, does not have a mushroom island. Now the borders will be expanded. In fact, I believe they'll be expanded more than once. We're going to keep our eye out for a mushroom biome because we want mycelium. Mycelium is a wonderful texture for kind of a cursed area. It has those particle effects. It has that unpleasant sound when you walk across it. It has that faded purplish color to it. It is so perfect. Right now there isn't any available. So parts of this will need revisiting and reconstructed after time, especially once I get the mycelium. I can also probably use some of that mycelium to cover up areas where it's bright green. Now it is getting dark here, and I'm probably going to have to find cover. So I'm going to run to some land. I'm going to build a box around me with some dirt. Because I haven't been sleeping, I've been running around, and the phantoms are going to come and try to eat me. And I'm quite sure that you would be entertained by watching me die to some phantoms, but it's not on the agenda for this episode. So I will come back after it's daytime, and we're going to look for some territory that is more flat. Maybe some terraforming done. Break out some wood and stone tools, or some stone and iron tools. I promise you I'm not going to subject you to wood tools. And flatten out some land, get ourselves some dirt to be able to do a little bit of filling in. And that'll be our initial starting area for some chests, some farming, some animals. So as the night rises, I am going to take off running. I will see you guys shortly. Now this swamp had one fairly sizable piece of land already on it, had more or less flat, few layers of dirt high, which is good because we're going to need this dirt to fill in the swamp. Seeing this, I decided to go ahead and just start smoothing this out, give us some room for getting those animals together and creating sort of a small base of operations. I probably won't build a house or anything on this because this will eventually be the main area for the creative build, but with a little bit of lighting, we can be more or less safe. Also, hunting in a swamp at night sometimes gets you some valuable slime. Now, I had mentioned that there were multiple reasons as to why I had chosen this particular swamp over those swamps. In addition to the heat map, as you might notice, there are mountains on several sides of the swamp. This plays out wonderfully for the general mood that I wanted to portray with the cursed lands. Not only are the lands meant to be ominous, but with the mountains so close to it on either side, it increases the feeling of kind of claustrophobia, like the land itself is closing in on you. I want travelers to come through here to feel like there's a little escape. And when I saw this swamp snaking through the mountains, I felt like this was the perfect shape. The swamp isn't too wide, and from standing in the middle, you can see the mountains on all sides. Now, there are not mountains on what I'm considering the back side, but that's not a big deal. We can we can manufacture a mountain, and that might happen. But to speak a little bit more as to Scarworld and the plans, not just for myself, but for the server for this season, there have been multiple districts that have been mapped out or more or less designated. And one of them happens to be the Dwarven Mountains and Elven Forest District. They're together. Right next to us are those two things. And this will give us some opportunity to have our build kind of fit with their theme. You have, if you think of Dwarven and Elven, a lot of people are going to think of Lord of the Rings, Tolkien's kind of universe. And within those kinds of settings, you often have some kind of, dark magic, cursed land type scenario, infested forest or whatnot. So I felt that placing this next to those districts could further enhance the overall region's theme, and hopefully we'll be able to work with some of the other builders to maybe incorporate some parts of this build into theirs to maybe make it so that this build can be overlooked by theirs, or maybe the transition from the cursed to their territories through pathways that slowly become less cursed on the way out. A place maybe where a traveler might be happy to seek refuge in their territories. So those are really the plans for the area and why I built in this area. To talk a little bit more about our plans for the industrial base, right off the bat we're going to get some villagers going, get some basic breeding going, basic trading going. Now, right now the server is on easy mode, so we're not going to make an effort to do the whole zombification right off the bat, but we can get a few cheap trades to get some decent enchantments and maybe some diamond tools and whatnot on the relative cheap, minimize the amount of time we spend underground. And from that, we'll move on to probably an iron farm next, because again, I do like to do contraptions and some level of redstone, and I really am a huge fan of sorting systems, which are very dependent on a large supply of iron, because hoppers take a lot of iron. So that will be something that will be a high priority build. We'll do that fairly soon, and then we move on to creeper farm and sugarcane farm, possibly for rockets. And welcome back. Hope you guys enjoyed that little time lapse of the joys of digging out dirt with iron tools. I'll tell you, I cannot wait until we have diamond gear, because iron, just not cutting it. I do have a little bit of diamonds that I've stashed away, but I just end up breaking it quickly without enchantments. It was easier just to continue to use iron for a little bit more. As you can see, I've been busy off camera. I still haven't terraformed anymore, but I didn't really feel like I needed to flatten any more of the land immediately. I had the space that I was looking for to be able to make some small pens. I actually found a couple of llamas nearby. And this is the first time I've ever had llamas. So of course I immediately rounded them up. I had to find out by my fellow Scarians that you have to use hay bales to breed these guys. And not only do you have to use hay bales, but they have to be friendly to you. So basically they function like horses. You need to pop on them and off, and get kicked off of them until they start to like you. And once they like you, then they can breed. So there was a lot of lost hay bales trying to figure out how to get these guys to breed, but finally worked that out. They will also eat raw hay, but I don't believe that they will breed with just regular hay. I pushed the gathering of sheep really kind of ahead of everything else, because I need the wool for beds. And then once I got the llamas, and I knew that you could carpet them, I just kind of went crazy. I'm like, I must have colors. I must try out the other colors. But then I ran out of wheat. I couldn't keep feeding them with hay bales. I don't have an industrial wheat farm. Let's check to see how my wheat is going. I think it's had some time to... So, I'm ready for another harvest of wheat. As you can see, Creeper Bob has been busy. I really should just tear this down. It'd be easier to pillar up if I'm actually on the right button. It would also be easier to cut down wood if I was on the right tool. That's all the dirt I had in hand. I have plenty in a chest. But anyway, I went on a little breeding spree to get me some colors for beds and for llamas. Some of them are disproportionate because I don't want in a specific color for future projects, and some of them are disproportionate because I tried breeding them for combined colors, like breeding blue with yellow, trying to get green, which apparently doesn't work. I always just got blue or yellow. So I've repainted some of the blue and yellow ones. I'm not sure why I have so many. I think these are magenta. But I still need green. I think that might be all I need. I don't have any cacti at the moment, but I do have, so I have black, both the shades of gray and white, brown, blue, light blue, red, pinks in the back, purple, magenta. I have orange, which I got from the red and yellow. Combining them does work. I'm just not sure why I don't get green from blue and yellow. And it seems familiar, like that was a problem in the past. Also, as you can see, I got a little bit better food. I'm not living on just melons, though I am still growing some melons. And got me some cocoa beans going on. And I found some beet seeds, even though it's the most useless thing in the game. And I figured, why not? Maybe I'll end up with a farmer by accident that wants beets. Ooh, apples. So anyway, this is kind of where we're at. You can see I haven't done a whole lot of breeding. A little bit on the cows so I can get some decent food out of them. I'm not sure why there are pigs running around. I know they didn't get out. These were like they must be spawns. So what I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to acquire a couple of villagers. Over in the distance, I've set up a little holding pen for villagers. But I did spend some time running around the server looking for villages that haven't been, raided. And not only did I not find villages that hadn't been raided, I just kind of didn't find villages. It was just, I don't know, that's just a weird seed, I guess, where I found only 2 villages and both of them were empty. And that was, I mean, I covered a lot of ground. A lot of ground. But it's okay, because there are other people who have villagers, and there's a fellow Scarian who's got a couple of villagers that he said I can take off his hands. And so I'm going to run off and meet up with him. He wanted to go to the Nether, but I haven't really done stuff in the Nether yet. I don't have a Nether portal. And I know where he lives. He lives in a desert. In fact, I know where he lives because I'm the one that told him where the desert was. But I'm a little... I know there was an ocean edging up to the desert. And the original swamp I started to settle in was next to the ocean. And I feel like this one, I know there's a river going this way, and that should be the way towards the ocean. So I'm thinking that maybe we can boat them back if we can connect oceans to oceans. So I'm going to take off running that way. Grab my boat, sit over in the water, and see if we can meet up with, his name is Mitch, and begin the adventure of getting villagers. Anyone who's had experience with villagers in the past, well, let's say you probably expect the same thing I do, which is best laid plans will not work out. Villagers are the most uncooperative thing in this entire game. But let's go. So I finally found Mitch's home. It was a bit further than I anticipated. The ocean strategy, don't think is going to work. I think it probably took me about an hour to get here. First, I tried to dig out that river, and that, well, I connected it quite some distance, but it never connected to the ocean. So I kind of gave up on it after running over 2 or 3 giant hills and basically continents, and just made my way by the coordinates. So I know he's waiting on me. I'm gonna head inside and say hello. Now, Mitch did mention that originally he wanted to use the nether, and clearly he was smarter than I was. And from what I understand, he put a lot of effort into getting these guys up here because they are breeding in the basement. But he was right, and it was easy enough to bring them back downstairs. However, he wasn't real careful about bringing them back down. You know, we probably should watch that again. Yeah, that's Mitch. Oh, that's just really terrible. And you know what lesson we should learn from this? If you're going to have a silly death, make sure someone isn't recording it. Boy, that column was really fixated on him too, even after he died. So I had to come to the rescue. Now, one thing I can't say I understand is the logic of building a portal in your breeding room. We had a challenge getting just the guys we wanted through. This is sped up considerably. But believe me, we took a long time getting these guys through. Villagers are just, well, they're very uncooperative. Another thing is when you're if you're building a bridge in the nether, don't make it of bottom half slabs, especially if it's over lava. I did pop out of the boat the first time, and because of lag, fell through it all the way down to the lava, then rubber banded back up onto the top. After that, I decided never again am I getting out of that boat. This would be Mitch getting a little tired of his only and very precious farmer who refused to go back inside. Rip farmer. But Mitch was a good sport about not only losing his guy, but nighttime falling, and the villagers just not wanting to get into a boat because they all wanted to go to bed. At least he learned his lesson about hurting the villagers and was very careful about breaking the beds to get them up. Finally, we got 2 villagers out. We have 1 desert villager and 1 brown coat. Now, as you can see, my hesitance of getting out of my boat, I make Mitch come and break the boat out from underneath me so I don't fall through the bridge again. Now, of course, boats won't go up hills or any elevation other than, I think, 1 layer of snow. So we had to break the villagers out of their boats, kind of put a trap around them, and get them to walk up to the next ledge, drop a boat underneath them, rinse and repeat. Once we had both of them out, we had to go to the next level, get him up once more time, and start our adventure towards the Dwarven District, which is where my home is. You might have also noticed a fireball go flying by. That was a unfriendly ghast trying to make our already difficult task even more difficult. Fortunately, from here, it's pretty much a straight shot to my area. Now, I didn't have a portal, but we were able to use a neighboring portal. And from there, down the mountains and into the swamp. All we needed to do now was wrap it around the swamp, take it to my very temporary, manual-ish village breeder. Let's say manual-ish. It's got the design set up to hold them so we can just throw food at them. And so the partial automation is that it will sweep the babies away. But there's no automated fashion for feeding them. That's fine. All I really wanted was a couple of villagers anyway within the swamp. That way there was a chance for them to breed a swamp villager. For those who are not aware, villagers, when they breed, they have a chance of being either one of the parent types or the type of the biome in which they are bred. This setup is entirely here so I can get swamp villagers for future use within the Cursed Lands creative build, as well as I'm going to want to use the swamp villagers, or some swamp villagers, in my full villager breeder for my farm. Now, we had some difficulty here. The first guy actually got loose, and we have him trapped off-screen off to the left a little bit. Second guy, we got him in fine. Those who are keen-eyed might notice that the post that they're standing on is in the wrong place. Yes, this guy also would eventually get free. And finally, for the keen-eyed, if you watch how carefully I place these rails so that they're not under a block of dirt so I don't suffocate this guy, might be able to predict what's about to happen. Yes. He ran right off the rail and under a piece of dirt, killing him. So those have been the joys of villagers that I'm sure anybody else who has spent any time playing with villagers is quite familiar with. We did eventually get a second villager in the pen. Their final count was one lost desert villager, as you saw, die to the suffocation. There was a lost brown coat. Those who might have noticed in the beginning of the clip, we left his base with a brown coat and a desert villager, but we ended up here with a pair of desert villagers. So off camera, we got separated briefly, and Mitch was with the brown coat, and apparently they got into a small disagreement with a ghast, and the brown coat perished for it. Then we lost, of course, the brown coat farmer at the end of Mitch's sword. So Mitch is down 5 villagers, which is a lot more than was originally intended. But I can't say enough how he stuck through and how nice he was about the whole thing and how much I appreciate his cooperation and perseverance in getting a couple of villagers pretty much all the way across Scarworld. He's certainly going to get kindness returned to him, starting with showing his death and rewinding and showing it again for everyone to see. But I think that we're going to call it here. I think we've got a lot done. Got this initial area all flattened out. Got animals together, some basic farming. I'm not eating watermelon anymore, and the foundation for getting some villagers, both for the creative build and for the village breeder farm that I will be starting very soon. I can't thank you enough for coming out and watching. I hope that you guys found this entertaining. So with that said, please feel free to leave a comment, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.